Welcome to the Momentum Lifestyle Project podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Ruse, and here at Momentum, we aim to challenge and champion committed men who are ready to take charge of their lives by mastering their mind, optimizing physical potential, and unlocking their power to find their mission. Whilst our work is predominantly with men, we hope that this podcast will provide value to all who choose to listen. So without further ado, let's jump in.
And a huge shout out to our first sponsor here, Be Spunky, the Australian men's health brand designed to support you to be the best you can be. Now, Blake Genoa and myself have been using this for quite some time now and absolutely love it. This product is something that we take every single day and drastically improves our training. But the one thing that I've noticed is my recovery time and the way that I feel the next day after training is so much better when I'm taking Be Spunky than when I'm not. And it is scientifically formulated to support optimum male hormone levels vital for strength, drive, and overall well-being. So big thanks to Be Spunky. You can find the link in the description below.
Guys, welcome to another episode of the Momentum Lifestyle Project. We are here with a very interesting fella. We had a big chat last week on his platform, and we're going to talk all things masculinity, sexuality, and everything in between. Tyran, welcome, big fella.
Thanks, Blake. Yeah, we did have a good chat last week. I look forward to seeing where this one goes.
Mate, I want to, this could go down so many paths, which is exciting, but I want to start by getting, I guess, like a 2 to 3 minute snippet of where you've been, where you're at, and obviously what's got you here. I mean, I'm going to really tie in, what I'm really interested to tie in is version 1.0 of you, as opposed to kind of version 2.0 when it comes to sexuality and masculinity and those things. But just give us a bit of a snippet of where you've been and where things are at for you now.
Sure, man. You know, I think traditionally as a young kid, as a young man, same as everyone, you know, like you have your first orgasm and you're like, holy fuck, what was that? Oh my God, this is amazing. Like, I want to do that all the time, you know? So like from the age of 14, I was jerking off 5-6 times a day because I was just like, this is the best thing ever in the history of life. And, you know, you become very kind of, you don't know anything. And so you don't really ask anyone. You definitely don't talk to your parents about it. You might all of a sudden have a chat with some of your mates and you're like, fuck, it's brilliant, isn't it? You're like, oh my God, I did like 6 times yesterday. So it perpetuates this like, this, I don't know, experimentation. But yeah, there's a lot of fear, you know, like I remember being told when I was a kid, stop playing with your willy, it'll fall off, you know? And so you dance between this is awesome. And like, is it allowed? Should I do it this much? Am I too bad? Is it, you know, I got told that I shouldn't be naked and I shouldn't do this. And so I danced, and I feel like we all dance with this. This is amazing. This feels so good, and something in me is telling me that it's bad or it shouldn't do it. So, you know, started watching porn, obviously, and just, you know, did the same thing that most men in the world do. And you know, I don't think there was a massive problem, but what happened was I got my heart broken at 26 after a 3-year relationship, and I went down a bit of a depression hole, and I didn't know how to manage that. And I got a job out in the mines. And so like, this was when it was really bad. I hated women because I was scared of them, right? Like I didn't hate them really, but I was hurt by them. Therefore I didn't, you know, want to open up to them. And like a regular day out of the mines was wake up at 3 a.m, jerk off, pre-workout, go to the gym, come back from the gym, jerk off again, shower, breakfast, work for 12 hours out in the mines, come back from work, jerk off, pre-workout, gym, dinner, shower, jerk off, sleep. Like that was my day for like 3 weeks in a row, you know? And I was jerking off to porn. I was coming as quick as I could. I had my favorite little videos, you know, I was on Tinder flat out. And I got to the point where like an ejaculation didn't even feel good. Like there was no real peak. I didn't even know if I had ejaculated or not. It was just kind of a bunch of little sensations. And you know, I was having connections with women, and I was so like, I wouldn't cuddle afterwards, and I would leave the house straight away. And I was just so closed emotionally and physically that I was just scared of intimacy on all levels.
Mm.
And at the same time, sex was how I validated my existence as a man. You know, like, if a woman wanted to have sex with me, I was like, I'm the man. I'm good. I'm worthy. It's okay for me to be here. And yeah, eventually I cracked. You know, like, eventually I just realized I hated my existence, how I was showing up, and I knew there was so much more to me, but no one saw it. But no one saw it because I didn't show it. I didn't express it. You know. So, you know, that led me down a path. I had a big breakdown. I bought a one-way ticket to Europe. I went traveling. I started to explore. I studied Tantra. I didn't talk to anyone about it because I was too scared to talk about coming and ejaculation and Tantra because it was too weird and woo-woo and all that stuff. And ultimately, I started to have experiences, and then I found people that were on the same journey, and that kept expanding. And yeah, I went on a couple of retreats and seminars and workshops, and now I've digested it enough in a way to make these far out spiritual concepts just be really practical and easy, and, you know, not so spiritual and woo woo. And for me as a man, once I mastered my sexual energy, it freed up so much more space for me to, like, live a life of purpose, because I wasn't trying to seek gratification or verification from women and from sex. You know, it's like, it's not that I don't love it. I still love women. I still love sex, but I don't need it to fill me up anymore. I can feel like me filling my own cup is doing whatever I want to do, and sex is a part of that, but it's not how I get my justification for existence. And so now I help men in the same areas.
What's the difference? I'll use the term relating as opposed to relationships. What's the difference in the way that you relate to women, or just sexually, over the last, say, if I remember your timeline right, the last probably 4 years to maybe the previous 10 years prior to that?
Yeah, really good question. So I guess how I view my relating with women differently is, I definitely have more respect for them as a whole being. You know, like, I definitely have more respect. I definitely have more admiration. I've always loved women. Like, I've never not loved them, but I've not necessarily trusted them with my heart or with my emotions. I've not necessarily felt safe to be really honest about all the parts of me, like that animalistic part that wants to fuck or dominate or control, or the other part of me that's really tender and doesn't want to have sex and doesn't want to be sexually intimate. You know, like, I've had shame at both extremes of these parts of me, because one is hyper masculine and over dominant, and one is weak and not masculine at all. So the way that I relate with women now is I have built up enough resilience of my own inner critic, like, against him, to be able to be more honest and real. And so the way that I relate with them is, like, there's more space, there's more like width or breadth, I guess, that when I meet someone, rather than, I don't really talk about depth. For me, it's not about depth, it's about width, like how much of one extreme and how much of the other extreme have you played in, and can I meet you in? That's where the fun for me exists. And once I can, swing left and right on a pendulum, and I can play in light and dark or whatever, that's when I can start to journey deeper with someone, because they can meet me on lots of different levels that I'm on. So yeah, it changed, and what it does is it allows me to see where women are at and what they don't feel comfortable maybe expressing. And if I feel comfortable in that, I can hold a space for them to express parts that they haven't really journeyed with before. And so, it creates much more possibility for connection in so many different realms.
It's a brilliant skill that I've got no doubt you do really well, in terms of creating the space and the environment for women to explore all parts of themselves. And, you in the sexuality space, and anyone who's kind of dipped their toe in will probably know that, as a pretty good rule of thumb, there's a lot of women that carry a lot of shame around their sexuality and their ability to kind of express themselves fully. What does that look like, whether it's from a coaching point of view or a relating point of view for you to create that space and potentially for other guys to kind of do similar?
You know, when you actually start to ask questions about women and their sexuality and their sexual history and their experiences, lots and lots of women, like statistically, I mean, they've done lots of studies, but they say on average, like it's about 81% of women have experienced some form of sexual assault. And when, you know, don't like, I mean, you can roughly quote that. I don't, you know, that number, you know, but they, you know, that's 4 out of 5 women. That's a lot. And as a man, when you start to understand what happens in a woman's body when she's been sexually assaulted, now that doesn't always mean violent rape. You know, that could be touched up the wrong way, rubbed the wrong way, you know, harassed, whatever. You know, so let's broaden the topic of what sexual assault is. It's, you know, there's a lot of it. But when you start to understand what happens to a woman's mindset, to a woman's relationship with masculine energy or men, to a woman's arousal state with that history, that's when you can kind of learn to hold that's when you can hold space differently, because you're not just coming with your own agenda as a man. And don't get me wrong, there's a dance between not shaming your own animalistic or spiritual desire for connection and all that stuff, and honoring theirs and their history and where they've come from and what their relationship with men is currently like. That's the simplest thing you can do, is like, you know, do some study and research. And when I say that, I don't just mean on a book or on the website. I mean, like, go talk to women and actually find out what experiences they've had in their life, because it will change the way you perceive women in general on the planet. Because it's like, holy shit, a large majority of them have experienced this not positive stuff around sexual energy. So no wonder they have moments of openness, moments of closeness, you know, that and they have their own shame and we have our own shame. You know, and I believe, and I, you know, could be wrong here, that 50% of women want to be ravished and dominated and controlled and, you know, like really held strongly and ravished firmly by the masculine. And the other 50% have had that happen and don't like it, you know. And when I say had it happen outside of consent, had it happen outside of, you know, what was nice and comfortable and agreeable. And so they have fear around that energy. So we as men can get really torn, because, like, you know, we have both parts, the compassionate part and the animalistic part. And it's like trying to discover what is needed in each moment. That's all about presence. And for me, that's what I try to teach men now, is like, can they explore themselves enough to find out what is real and inside them in each moment, so that they can dance with what is real in another. So yeah, I hope that gives a bit of framework for it.
Well, even what you just said then, like, for some people, it blows my mind, but some people are really confused by, you know, the show, what's it called? Sex Life, that was on Netflix, you know, the movie 365 that's on Netflix, and 50 Shades, because of that piece that you talk about. Where my head goes instantly, and I don't want to kind of come across insensitive as to what people have experienced, but where my head goes is, what's your relationship to that part if you see it, you know, in a really demonizing way? But there's obviously that ravishing part that you know, people have a really indifferent relationship with. When it comes to the darker energies or that dark sexual experience, what is it that stops blokes from exploring it, and how do they integrate it better?
So normally there is a story or a personal experience that stops them exploring it, you know. Like, I'm going to be completely honest, like, that ravishing, bloodlust, thirsty, like that has done a lot of damage on the planet, you know. Like, let's look at a couple of hundred, even 1,000 years ago, men would get so pepped up. Like, imagine how much testosterone and animalistic, primal, wild nature a man needs to stand on the front line of a battle with a fucking sword and a shield and watch the enemy charge at him, and just, you know, like, I'm prepared to die for whatever, love of country, love of family, love of whatever it is. On the other side of that, you know, like that's where the raping and the pillaging comes from, because they are so like that bloodlust, that animalistic stuff of like, I must kill or be killed. When that's prevalent in the body, it's really hard to stop. And that's why men after battle would rape and pillage and steal and abuse and torture, because it's just, you know, there was no consciousness wrapped around it. So that is ingrained in us. You know, it's told us that it's bad, and to some extent it really is. But when you play with it consciously a little bit, you know, that's when you can't. It's like learn to ride a bike. You got to get on the bike. You got to pedal the pedals. You got to take the training wheels off at some point. You're gonna fall off. You're gonna graze your knees. Can you keep getting up? Like what stops us from doing it is the fear that we're gonna hurt someone, or the fear that we're gonna hurt ourselves, or the fear that we're gonna lose control. And it's the same as any type of dark energy, not just in the sexual realm, but even like the aggression. Like get into a boxing ring and start punching. It's like you're either afraid that you're going to lose control and hurt them, or they're going to lose control and hurt you. And ultimately, it's a really poor relationship with death. Ultimately, that's the bottom level for me. But yeah, it's like, what happens if I lose control? Like, I don't know. It's like, I don't have a good relationship with aggression. I'll never be a good protector if I don't have a good relationship with aggression, because a certain level of aggression is needed to protect. So, you know, I feel like we need to find spaces where we can run this darker energy, whether it's physical aggression, assertiveness, dominance, or whether it's more sexual, you know, and learn to play with it in as conscious way as we can, causing as little harm as possible to ourselves and to anyone else, and be okay with not getting it right. You know, like we learn from experience, and the fear of getting it wrong is normally what stops anyone trying anything. You know, like I don't know, I might fuck it up, so I'm not even going to try, and that's what keeps us stuck. What does that look like? You know, I mean, a lot of the circles I've hung out with, I mean, they do initiations, you know, like you can have sexual initiations into aspects of sexuality to allow you to play and explore and learn, you know. And once we remove the shame and the taboo around sex and sexuality, it does open up spaces for men and women to be able to explore that and remove their own shame and remove their own stories around it, so that they can liberate their own inner critic, and feel more free and have more life force inside of them, because they're not judging themselves for whatever.
Yeah, fuck, it's fascinating. It's obviously the work that you do and some of the blokes that I work with. There's a real lack of trust and a big piece around shame and control that feel like they're really, you know, three overarching themes amongst kind of dark energy and also that animalistic part of them. For those that are new to that term, and there'll be probably a number of people that haven't heard this animalistic term, what does that mean, and what does it kind of look like in sense of sexuality, but also just general being?
Yeah. So like for me, sound, breath, and movement are the three things that move energy in the body, right? Like emotion, energy, and motion. And you think about when we're 13, 14 and we start jerking off, it's like you're in your bedroom, you're under the sheets, and every time you come, you're like, you know, and you hold your breath, you don't make any noise, and you're not moving. And so, because you don't want mum and dad to like hear you in the hallway, because you have some shame around. Like very, very few of us have got parents that are like, look, son, soon, or daughter, soon you're going to be experiencing your body. I want you to make as much noise as you want, and you know, like that's not really the space most of us live in. We even freak out if we hear our parents having sex when we're young. You know, it's this whole thing. And so, like, we don't learn to express any part of this animalistic part. Like when we're angry, we don't yell. We get like, emotions are bad. We get shut down emotionally when we're very young. Like, be a big girl, be a big boy. Like, what are you feeling, right? Why? And it's like we try to curb the animal part of us that is instinctual and habitual and just wants to move and shake and yell and scream. And so, you know, it doesn't have to be sexual, But just getting in touch with that part of us in any way, shape, or form is going to support the liberation of, our inner critic and learning how to express ourselves in a different way. Like every woman I speak to on my social media platform, or every woman I connect with, guys, you don't understand how much they love it when you groan and growl during lovemaking. Like women love it as much as men love it when women make noise. And yet for whatever reason, because we train ourselves to be quiet and have weird faces when we come, because we don't tap into that, like, like we don't just give ourselves permission to let it out. Like women like it as much as we do. And if you give yourself permission, even in just your self-pleasure place to do that, or at the gym, like start growling when you're at the gym, and like, things like this. And when you're working out, like give yourself permission to express, to make noise, to sound, to breathe deeper. That's the most simplest thing you can do, just to start to tap into this animalistic or this darker part of you, right? This raw, more primal part.
Yeah. And for anyone who feels resistance around what we've spoken about for the last 3 or 4 minutes, that's the exact shadow part for you to explore as well. And anything that we speak about over the course of the 45 minutes, where you find resistance is a really good opportunity for you to kind of explore, to integrate that into your kind of general being. What's the difference between, from a masculinity point of view, what's the difference between version 2.0, 3.0, whatever you would classify yourself as now, compared to, maybe the version of yourself in your 20s? How does that look different now?
It's funny you ask this question now, because this year, specifically 2021, I started to play AFL again, which I haven't done for 7 years, and when I was playing footy 7 years ago, like I was at my peak of like, male chauvinistic, let's get fucked up and debauch, like have stories for the boys and do dumb shit. And 26, 27, out in the mines, working like jacked up on training twice a day and all the proteins and stuff, having all the cash, doing all the things, heartbroken. So I was like, fuck women, like rah, I was just a beast. But it was very, very unconscious. It was very like dismissive. And for me, it comes from a pain place. Like if you look at if you look at the beast archetype, or this primal part, characters in movies like Mel Gibson in Lethal Weapon, right? He was hurt. His wife died. He was full of pain. He didn't give a shit whether he died or not. And he didn't give a shit if he hurt other people because he was in so much pain. So for me, this dark part is driven by emotion. And when we don't understand that emotion, it can play out really, really unhealthily, because people are like, oh, you don't give a fuck about anyone else. And it's like, I kind of don't, but not because I don't care. It's because my pain is I'm so in my own pain that I don't know what to do with it. And so I don't really care what happens outside of that, because I'm so attached to my story and my pain. Whereas now, my emotion, and so that's where I was at. Whereas now, I understand that about myself. So I understand enough, like when I'm angry, I have enough, I don't suppress the anger, but I'm like, okay, where am I angry? What is my anger showing me? My anger is showing me that I care about something. Well, what do I care about? Okay. So now I've learned to not suppress my anger, but to understand where it's coming from, do what I need to do to release it. Maybe I need to scream, yell, fuck pillows, bash, go to the gym, run, swim, like whatever. I know what I need to do to move it out of my body, but I'm not holding onto it and using that to drive me. I'm removing my, let's say, negative emotions, or moving them through to come back into joy, bliss, happiness, ecstasy. And I allow that to now drive my actions in the world, right? I still get driven by my emotions. I'm still very primal and animalistic, but I'm not so attached to my pain. And when I am attached to my pain, I use that as more motivation to like, I might go for a 20-kilometer pack run instead of a 5-kilometer pack run, because I know there's all this shit in me that I need to move, but I'm not running to suppress, I'm running to express. Like that's the difference, really. It's like, I understand that emotion drives intention and drives action, and I've learned to use my emotions on a better way to drive my actions to positively impact the environment around me, not to justify my own pain.
Dude, express instead of suppress is a fucking brilliant one-liner. Love it. You mentioned earlier respect and not trusting, and obviously a really interested relationship with the feminine, which I fucking resonate with way too much. And I want to preface wherever this goes with knowing that, you know, from a female point of view, but also from a male point of view, a lot of this is passed down in terms of the lack of respect or not trusting the feminine. Often it's passed down in its generation. And obviously we had a massive movement a few years ago, which, we at times get the backlash, but, it needs to be thought through properly, that it's often been passed down from generation to generation. So we're literally, born with a lot of this in us. I need to become more aware and more conscious and then move through it. And it came up for me, both these terms of not trusting the feminine, which obviously makes it really hard in a relationship dynamic, and realizing that I didn't actually trust the feminine as much as I wanted to. And it really actually kind of broke my heart when I realized, I had this moment through the lack of respect and not trusting them. And, essentially the fuck you energy that you mentioned before around the feminine. What did that process look like to heal and to create a really healthy relationship with the feminine?
Trigger warning, this may really offend some people. All right, I'm gonna get really honest with this. So basically I didn't trust the feminine or women because I'd been hurt by them. And because I'd been hurt by them and I was trying to be the nice guy, I was trying to be like, no, it's okay, like I'm fine. And I was suppressing and overriding. I had a lot of hate, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment. I had a lot of bitterness towards women and the way they had treated me, or the way that I had felt like they treated me, being cheated on, being disrespected, being manipulated, being like whatever story I had running about it. And the part, like, I processed a lot of it, but it all came up again when I started to journey open relating. Like, I'm been open relating for about 4 or 5 years now, and I was in a relationship with a woman, and we were journeying open relating, and it was it just came up so much in that relationship specifically, like abandoned, rejected, manipulated, not like all the stuff. And so learning, like, I had to get that out. Like, I had to get that hate, that anger, that resentment, that bitterness. I had to get it out of my system, because if it was still lived inside of me, I was never going to be able to love a woman. Like, never going to be able to love a woman, because I didn't trust them. And on deep spiritual things, like, you didn't trust your own inner feminine, or you didn't stand up for her. And I don't want to get into that so much in this podcast. We can do that another time. But I got nasty. Like, I have a few different mentors, and they're all about expression. And this woman, Janine, she guided me through an emotional release session. It took about an hour and a half, and it got dark. Like, when I say dark, I mean, like, she fully supported me. Like, okay, what do you want to do to her, Tyran? Like, I put a person on the pillow. It was that psychosomatic kind of, I got like, yeah, fuck it. All right. I like imagined I had a knife and I jammed it up her yoni and cut her open and smashed her teeth. And like, I got so dark that it scared me, right? I was like, as if this lives inside of me. And it doesn't, I think it lives inside everyone, but not everyone is going to have to go to that place, like, I had felt really hurt. Therefore, and she supported the process, she didn't shame the part of me that wanted to get nasty, dark, and really, and wish the most vile, disgusting things on this person and on women and whatever. And it was like, once I actually went to the darkest, scariest part of my psyche, and the part of me that was holding on to the pain, once I went into that and like expressed it and let it out and didn't no longer shame that part of me, obviously there was an integration period. Like, I was very shaky for probably 4 or 5 days after that. I was really lucky. I was on this woman's land, and I wasn't in the community. I wasn't in any city or anything. I was in the middle of the bush. So it just allowed me to like have a fire every night, swim in the river, like just process all that stuff. But that's ultimately what it was, and it doesn't matter what emotion it is. It's the same as grief, like, for example, a child whose parent dies, or even a mother whose child dies, if you're still holding on to that grief, you'll never be able to come back into love. And for me, it's that ability to go into the anchor into the thing that is holding you down and trapped, and being able to go to the absolute depths of it and get it out of your physical, emotional, psychological being, the liberation's on the other side of that, you know. And sometimes it takes processes, and some people do it in medicine circles and stuff, and that's, you know, everyone's individual for that. I believe medicine is amazing, and I like to do a lot of my work without it first, because then for me, then the medicine is a different experience. You know, I don't use it as a crutch. For me, if I start using it as my express tool, it's the same as drinking. You know, so I'm using it as the thing I need to learn to go to those places without it. And so that was the biggest one. You know, I got really vile, and it was really scary to go to that place. But once I let it all out, because then I saw the story for what it was, of like, oh, this is bullshit. Like, this chick didn't really try to hurt me on purpose. She was following her thing, and she's got her own shit. And yeah, it allowed me to let go of it and come back into love and come back into my heart and go, right, let's get on with life now. You know, I've run that story. It's no more. It's not me anymore.
One of the things that I feel like you do really well, and it's been a focus of mine, is being able to hold a really safe container that anything is allowed. And for me, you know, I just kind of had a moment then, like, for some people, that story that you shared would really rattle them. Whereas for me, there was just no judgment, no shame, no angst that really came up. And I think, you know, I'll get you to explore this in a sec, is there's a lot to be said for you taking yourself to those levels in order to be able to hold space for other people to take themselves to that level. And what does that look like for you as a coach and as a lover, in terms of how has that allowed you to meet women deeper, hold space for them so they can meet themselves deeper as well? What does that process look like? Because for a lot of blokes, I know they struggle with the fullness and the darkness of women and their ability to really go to places. And you know, I remember reading some of, I think it's Dr. Wednesday Martin's research, where she's like, females can go so much deeper and darker than males as a general rule of thumb. Males just can't meet them there. So what does that look like? Because I imagine you're doing it quite well.
I mean, if we went back on the everyone has a masculine or feminine thing, it's like, if you are prepared, if you understand that to some extent, and you want to consciously go and play in the darker feminine, the darker masculine, the lighter feminine, the lighter masculine, like, you know, you can do that, and therefore you will learn. It's always going to be different if you're in a male body exploring the dark feminine or the feminine aspect, you know, but it doesn't mean you can't explore it and go, okay, what does this feel like? All right, now I understand. But as far as like, what does it look like? How do I do it now? It's like, well, nothing really upsets me, you know, like there's not much. Like, you were just listening, and that's cool. I knew some people are going to be super triggered by that, like, as if you would ever even think that. And it's like, well, I did, I did think it. And not only did I think it, I played it out, not on a person, you know, not like would never do that, but energetically, like, I pretended I had a knife and I had a mattress rolled up, and I was, you know, going for it, and I spat, and I really went to that place, and it was like I said, it was scary for me at the time. But now I understand that, like, nothing is permanent, you know. And this is the thing, it's like, if I have a thought, that thought does not mean that I am something based on just that thought or that feeling or that desire. And that's, for me, was a really powerful part. It's like, I am not, or they are not, the thought or the feeling or the emotion that they are experiencing right now in the moment. And therefore, I don't have to, that's why I don't judge someone that's going through a process. It's like, cool, you are moving through a thing and you need to move through the thing. The only judgment I have these days is like, you're taking too long. Let's go deeper. Come on, like I'm on. Yeah. And it's not even a judgment. It's like, I want to encourage this piece to let go of. So yeah, you know, like, I've been on shamanic retreats for weeks on end where this stuff is just done every day in group process. And, you know, I run group programs now with men, and what I love is a large portion of it is me teaching these guys the processes that I do, and then them guiding themselves, and any questions they have, they share with me. But we also do it in a group format, and when we do it in a group, and we realize that we've all got our own variations of the same shit, the same story, the same insecurities, the same bitterness, the same resentment, the same grief. That's also where like big, large amounts of liberation happen. Is like, oh, I just expressed to these 10 men or 20 men or 50 men or 100 people, like, I want to do this thing that I have shame around. I want to viciously hurt someone. And no one judges, and no one shares, no one hates, and no one says it's bad. And that's where the liberation lies. And even some people are like, oh man, yeah, me too. I want to do that. And it's like, oh. So all of a sudden, I am not my pain. You are not your pain. We share a similar pain that is experienced through the collective. And, you know, it's not me and it's not you. It's just an experience. And so that's what allows me to hold a really beautiful space for a woman or a man or anyone, because I don't attach what they're doing or expressing or saying with me, or with, you know, like it's an attack on me, or it's a thing with me. I may be the trigger for it, but it's not about me. It's not about them. So
yeah, it's, I mean, shame's such an interesting piece in itself, but I've heard of so many stories of mothers, especially with newborns, sleep deprived, losing their fucking marbles, like having a brief thought of, shaking their kid to death and stuff like that. And it really freaks them out. And then obviously there's a level of shame that gets built around that. But, it's so liberating. I'm sure you experience it with your clients, to be able to, and I had a really good one with a client last week where I was like, I want you to, in this like next 20 minutes, let's go as deep as you can and dark as you can. And, almost like this shame circle between her and I that she'd never really explored properly, in terms of just the darkest of, for her, and just for me to be able to kind of hold it, and for her just to finally let go of the shackles that have, held her back for so long. Open relating I find fascinating, and shout out to my girlfriend, who we're in a beautiful monogamous relationship. But how do you explore that? And I was really fascinated. I used to listen to Aubrey Marcus, who was quite open about his with Whitney, and I think he's Caitlin, his girlfriend, before that. And one of the parts that I was fascinated about, or fascinated in, was the level of growth that is extraordinary in an open relationship. How do you navigate that as someone, if someone's kind of interested in exploring it? And what's been your primary purpose or your main reason for relating that way?
All right. I had a 3-year relationship from 23 to 26, and I was head over heels with love with her for a long time, and lots of my friends were like that in monogamous relationships, and just the thought of like, I knew that if I had sex with someone else, it didn't change the love that I had for her. I knew that was the truth of me. I knew that was a truth that existed. But trying to understand, like trying to ever speak about that to anyone, like there's no one in my circles ever that I could do that with, So I stayed single most of my life because I just like being single. I like exploring, I like meeting new people. I like the energy of dating. And then as I deepened my own journey of Tantra and spirituality, and I started to meet people who were open relating, I was like, oh, this is a real thing. It was always like swingers or monogamy, and swingers were kind of very frowned upon when I was growing up. It was like, oh, they're dirty, they swingers party, they, blah, blah, blah. And so as I started to explore conscious sexuality, and, people were really actively doing it. And not only were they like, I just want to have sex with other people, it was like, what is the meaning of love? What is the meaning of connection? And do you actually really get to control another person's body because you are in a relationship with them? When it all started to get framed like that, I mean, I pendulum swung. I was like, oh, love and light and love and freedom and whatever. And I did that for a little while. But I tell you what, like, for me, spirituality is learning to not judge and open to love, no matter what, you know. And when you're trying to open to love while someone that you care so deeply for and have lots of, even if it's healthy attachment, even if you have healthy attachment, all this attachment to them of like, oh, you make me feel complete. When they express a desire or to be with someone else, I mean, you want to do shadow work, that's fucking shadow work, you know, like you want to face your abandonment wound, you want to face your insecurities, you want to try to become pure love no matter what, fucking try that, you know, like try witnessing your partner being intimate with someone else in the same room and see if you can find love in that moment for her and for him, or for him and for her, or whatever. And like, that's, for me, it's a spiritual practice. It is the most confronting, scary spiritual practice I've ever seen or witnessed. And that's not to say that pure celibacy also isn't a fucking spiritual practice. That would also be a ridiculously hard spiritual practice, and it is, you know, that's what all the yogis do. But I don't want to be celibate. I don't want to like close myself off to the world on that level to open myself up spiritually. That's not the pathway that works for me. And I remember having this dream, right, after my first couple of workshops, retreats, and it was like, imagine how full of love I must be, how self-soothing, self-satisfied, self-full of life and love, of like, I'm fucking awesome must I be in order to witness the woman that I love make love to another man, and not only not get jealous, but actually be like, oh, that's beautiful. Like, I love her and I love that she's happy and he's a beautiful man. Imagine how full of self-love I must be in order to be in that place. And I made an agreement to myself that I would be able to get there. You know, I made an agreement at that time, it was probably about 3 and 4 years ago now, of like, that's what I want for myself, not for anyone else. No, I don't want that, you know, like if they want it, that's great. But I'm on that journey for me because I want to face my insecurities. I want to face my fears. I really want to do the deepest shadow work I can on myself. And I've always been competitive with men, always, and not always on a healthy way. And so for me, if I had a girlfriend and you were like, hey man, I'm really attracted to your girlfriend, and my girlfriend's like, hey, I'm really attracted to Blake, I'd be like, whoa. All right, like well, is he better looking than me? Does he have a bigger cock? Is he going to be a better lover? Is she going to fall in love? You know, like all of my insecurities can surface in that.
Yeah. None of those things, mate, are true, to be honest.
But, you know, like that's the story, that's the stuff. And I've been learning this for a while. And, you know, it's the animal body, that primal part of like me and mine. And I need in order to be alive. And once you face that, once you face the death of that, shit, I mean, you not much scares you after that, you know. Am I free of it? No. Am I way better than I was 3 years ago? Absolutely. You know, and I every time I talk to someone about that, I tried open rating once. It's not for me. It's like, you tried to walk once too, but you kept going, you know, like and that doesn't mean everyone has to do it. It's not for everyone. I'm not trying to be, it's the way that we are. I think everyone gets to pick and choose. But yeah, that's why I do it. And that's my selfish intention, is to become so full of love in myself that, you know, I've had it. I was in love, so crazy in love with this girl, this woman. We met 4 months together. We journeyed open relating a little bit. We had boundaries. We had no sex, so we, you know, everything but sex was allowed with other people, and that was, you know, how we started to tiptoe. It's like, all right, well, I trust you, I love you, you are free, but that's a boundary for now. And then I felt really safe, and I was like, cool, I want to open that boundary. First guy she slept with, she left me for. They are now married and have a baby and live 10 kilometers down the road from my house. I saw her down the beach this morning. You know, so I literally faced the, like, oh, I'm going to open relate. And the first man she slept with, she left me with. Like, I was in hell. I was in hell for weeks. And now I can see her and we can chat and talk, and I see her son and her husband, and we all hang out and have coffee together. And it's like, I'm alive, you know, I'm fucking alive. I'm okay. nothing died, but yeah, it's a scary place for us. You know, it brings up all of my worthiness stuff. So as a man,
mate, it's credit. Having listened to what you said and listened to some of the stuff that Aubrey had to work through, a lot of it's obviously ego related, which in itself is some deep work to be done. And even for those that are interested in this topic, and I love kind of exploring these type of topics, it's really worth understanding on a deep evolutionary standpoint that committing to one, and I don't want to go along and break up any marriages, but I do want to kind of preface what's just been said with the fact that if you go exploring this on a deep level, we're actually not made to commit to one person for life. So if you have this innate desire and you've got shame around it or whatever it may be, it's worth it at least understanding on a deep evolutionary standpoint how we are designed, and then obviously make your call from there. I'm not kind of encouraging you to explore if it's not for you, but if you're carrying around levels of shame or guilt or even fear around the desires that you've got, they're there for a reason, and not necessarily anything to do with the relationship that you've got, just from a evolutionary standpoint.
Well,
what do you?
Sorry,
you go.
On that, I just want to say, like, if I'm with a woman, I want her to choose me every day from a place of freedom, not from a place of obligation. You know,
That's
like
really good.
I want to choose her every day from a place of freedom, not obligation. And in a society where more than 50% of marriages end in divorce, and cheating is more socially acceptable than just acknowledging that you would like to sleep with other people, like that's kind of a bit twisted. Do you know what I mean? Like cheating is more acceptable than just acknowledging that you actually have a desire to be with some other people and be with your partner. So I want my woman, whoever she is, I want my partner to be like, I can be with anyone and I choose you every day. And not only do I choose you every day because I'm married and made that commitment, cool, I have the freedom because we've agreed that I can go be with anyone that I want to be, and I still want to be with you, you know. And sometimes I want to be with them in the morning and I want to be with you in the evening or something, you know, like, and that's the dance. But yeah, I want to be chosen from freedom every day. That's my power play.
That's a big power play, because I mean, the more work I do, the more I go through a wave of emotions when I realize how many relationships are built on control, attachment. The fucking fact that you sign a contract as marriage still blows my mind. Like the more and more work I do, the more I look at it and go, fuck, there's just a whole bunch of cages that have been systematically built.
It's for safety.
Yeah.
I feel safe. You and I feel safe. We make the commitment and I sign this bit of paper, and now I know that, and you know that we're here forever, and I'm not, and I can rely on you forever. And it's like, it's awesome. Marriage can be one of the most profound. Like my mum and dad have been married for a long time, and they love each other deeply, and it's awesome. And like, they live individual lives, and that's why their marriage works. They are not dependent on each other for their happiness. They are agreed to, as free beings, have agreed to live together and choose each other, and it's beautiful. And they argue and fucking smash shit and do all that stuff like everyone else. But yeah, it's like I'm not reliant on you for my safety and my freedom. I'm relying on me, and from that place I still choose you. That's sweet spot.
Mate, that's fucking gold. And in itself, I guess kind of talking about relationships and relating is, I'm hell-bent these days on choosing your own relationship in its own structure. Like, to fucking blanket 8.2 billion people and say this is the way a relationship should look, fuck that. Like, work out what fits right for you and explore that. And obviously it's a process kind of working through shame, but let go of the shame of, the dogmatic way of showing up and relating, and just like do whatever's right for you guys. Like, for me, that's a big piece. In wrapping it up, for blokes who, we get blokes, for all levels in particular, who are kind of starting this journey and are pretty well versed as well. What do you see as, I guess, kind of key things to consider when it comes to, and obviously we're talking Gen Pop, but key things to consider when it comes to masculinity and sexuality in the modern day? What would they explore? What's, you know, some thoughts for them to consider in expanding in that space?
A lot of the time, your kinks and quirks and turn-ons come from a part of shame that lives inside of you, right? Like there's a book called Existential Kink. Can't remember
it's
the
brilliant.
author. Yeah, it's a great book. If no one's read it, I highly recommend it. It's not just about sexuality, but it's about your psychology and, you know, how, and like the things that turn you on. Like, for example, being in a poor mindset of like poor wealth mindset, there's a part of you that enjoys being in a poor wealth mindset. So it's like, can you get turned on by that part and give that more space? And yeah, and it's, so for me, sexually, it's the same thing. It's like your little kinks and quirks and turn-ons, they come from an experience or a story that you have in the past of like, you're not allowed it, therefore that's why it turns you on. You know, a lot of us like we get turned on by the shadow, we get turned on by the unacknowledged. So like, you know, starting to explore things like that, like there are hundreds of day workshops, weekend retreats, week-long retreats that, you know, you can go to start to explore certain aspects. You know, there's rope classes and conscious BDSM and all that stuff. And it's beautiful. Those people are lovely. Like they're really nice and they're all about experience, you know. Don't get me wrong, when you start to express certain aspects of yourself, shadow aspects of that are going to reveal themselves in the form of other people. So, you know, but that's the same in the general pop normal world, you know, like you try to go to a place where there's no anger and there's always going to be someone that has anger that, you know, you know, it's just, that's how the world works. But masculinity and sexuality, like sound, breath and movement, change the way you masturbate, make way more noise, you know, like change positions, change styles, withhold your semen for a couple of days and keep self-pleasuring. And like, what's it like to change the pattern? You know, like for me, like be a pattern disruptor, and play, make sex and relationships fun, like play with your partner, explore different things, ask questions. You know, you're building a business, I'm building a business. I set a goal, I create a plan. At the end of that, did we heat up? Did we reach our goal? No. Okay, what worked? Ask your partner, what do you like? What don't you like? What do I do that you don't enjoy? What do I do that you love? What would you like to like? We take it so personal because as men, we should know it all, of like asking for feedback from the women that we relate to, that, you know, it stops our growth in that area. And masculinity specifically, like go and seek mentors, and you don't have to pay for a mentor. Use, if you don't want to, or if it's, you know, don't have the funds. I recommend getting a paid mentor. I've got a couple. I know you've got a couple, and that's what we do and stuff. But like, find men in your life that represent energy or things that you don't have, and copy them. And take the things that you like, and don't be afraid of failing. Like Gary Vee has this amazing quote of like, to be a Hall of Famer in baseball, you've got to hit the ball 3 out of 10 times. You hit the ball 3 out of 10 times, you're a Hall of Famer baseball hitter. And it's like 3 out of 10. That means you can miss 7 out of 10 and still be one of the greatest batsmen of all time. That's what it takes to succeed, you know, like just trying and constantly trying. So, you know, I've learned that men that I don't like, or men that I don't resonate with, sometimes there's a trigger and I can work through it. But most of the time, I just need to find guys that I respect and are doing things I want, and go and talk to them and ask them questions. Like, you know, dudes in the gym, hey man, your shoulders are massive. How did you do that? Like, what are your practices? What do you do? Oh, you run triathlons. Great. How do you improve this? How do you improve that? Hey, you have a multi-million-dollar business. I'm here. How did you do that? You know, like go and learn from multiple men. No one man is perfect for you. Go and learn from multiple men.
Mate, you nailed it nicely. For those that want to explore your work with you, what's the best way for them to find you?
TyranMowbray.com, but to be honest, I'm not a website person. You can check it out. There's some stuff on there. Facebook, Tyran Mowbray, Instagram, Tyran Mowbray. They are where I put a lot of videos. I'm posting every day. There's heaps of video content, sexuality, masculinity, relationships, spirituality, the dark, the light, all that stuff. Yeah, check it out there. I got a program coming up in November all about Tantra, called the Tantric Tradie. It's for everyday regular blokes. That's going to be a good one. But yeah, those two platforms mostly. if you want to send me a message, feel free. I respond to pretty much every message unless they're completely stupid. So yeah, feel free, gentlemen. Don't be afraid to reach out and ask some questions.
Beautiful. Yeah, mate, this will be out before November. So suss his stuff out. If he feels a fit, jump in his program in November. Mate, thoroughly enjoyed it, just like I enjoyed our last chat. And I know the guys will get plenty of juice from it.
Yeah. And hopefully their girlfriends too.
Yes, awesome. Cheers, brother.
No worries, mate. Thank you.